All right, welcome to the rundown. We're going to be getting into Shedeur Sanders' preseason performance, Anthony Richardson's preseason, Matthew Stafford, and if his back is a reason for concern, and the Athletics QB tiers and what I think about it. So let's start off with Shedeur Sanders. Pretty solid, 14 of 23, 138 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 106.8 passer rating. A lot of short routes, but that's okay. I liked how he was able to stay in the pocket and fire away. And one thing you can't question about Shedeur Sanders is his toughness. I mean, going back to his days in Colorado, he had a terrible offensive line, gotten beaten and bruised, but he was still able to stay upright. And I just don't think a lot of quarterbacks would be able to thrive in that situation like he was able to thrive. And even though he threw a lot of short routes, I think that's just how it is to play quarterback. I mean, you need to be able to make the short routes and throw the slants and whatnot. And there are only maybe a few times a game where you need to make the big explosive plays. So I like how Shedeur was able to stay composed. And even though it was the preseason, I think it was important that he played well and he showed that he was capable of running an offense, because if he played poorly, then the whole critics would have came out and been like, oh, it's preseason, can't play well against second string, third string, fourth string guys. And if he can't play well against those guys, then how is he going to be able to play well in the NFL? So I'm glad that he was able to prove that he could play at least in one game. We'll see how he plays in the other games, but he'll definitely get some starts for sure. I mean, since he played well, I'm sure that he'll get some more reps, and it's a chance for him to move up in the depth chart. I mean, as of now, he's fourth in the depth chart. I mean, I made a video before. I thought Flacco would obviously be the starter, then it would be Pickett, and then I thought Shedeur would be the third string guy, and then maybe Dillon Gabriel would be the fourth string guy. But I think he has a pretty good shot. I mean, I know it's a long shot to move up to second string. I mean, with Kenny Pickett having a hamstring injury, he definitely has a shot to move up to the second string. But at the very least, he has a very, very good chance of beating out Dillon Gabriel. And I hope he's able to beat out Dillon Gabriel. I mean, as of now, he's still fourth on the depth chart. But with more preseason games coming up, I'd imagine he'd get some starts or at the very least playing time, and he'll be able to beat out Dillon Gabriel. Even though he did confront the ESPN reporter Tony Rossi for what he deems to be unfair criticism, I like how he's going about it the right way with his other comments talking about how he's only focusing on controlling what he can control and that he's not giving energy to what he can't control, and all he can do is play his best and let the chips fall where it may. And I mean, I know this is the first time that Shedeur Sanders has confronted a reporter, but he's going to get a lot of media attention. And if he happens to play, I mean, there's going to be some scrutiny and criticism, and there's going to be some nitpicking of some of the plays he does and doesn't make. And that's just how it goes when you play quarterback in the NFL, or if you're a professional athlete. And if Flacco happens to stink, then there's going to be a lot of clamoring from fans and media alike for him wanting to play. And I just hope when he gets to scrutiny and criticism that he doesn't respond too much into it. But I just don't think that's how he's wired. I mean, I think he's going to confront reporters if he feels that he's getting a lot of criticism, or he feels that a reporter has it out for him. And I'm not saying that he has to take personal shots, but that's just how it goes when you're an athlete. I mean, some reporters will like you, some reporters won't, and that's just how it is. But him and Dion aren't wired to just let things slide. They're wired to just respond back, which I get, but I just think when you're a quarterback, you have to be more composed. You have to be more CEO like. And I mean, lots of quarterbacks take criticism, whether it's Dak Prescott for not winning in the playoffs, same with Lamar. He's gotten a lot of criticism coming into the league, and many people thought he wouldn't be able to play quarterback, or Justin Herbert, Josh Allen. I mean, all the top dudes get it, so he's definitely going to get it. And all those guys, they just internalize it and they just use it as fuel for their fire and just be able to play better with it. And I just hope that's what he does. I just hope that he internalizes it and he doesn't give it too much focus. But I just don't think that's what's going to happen. He's going to confront people who he feels are unfair to him, and that's just is what it is. But hopefully someone in his corner can tell him that as a quarterback, that's not the way to go about it. I mean, Baker Mayfield, he tried to do that. He tried to confront people, go back online with people who he feels that slighted him, and it just didn't end well for him at all. And it took him a few stops before he realized that he needs to let things roll off his back, and now he's having a phenomenal career in Tampa Bay. So I hope Shedeur can learn something from that, but I highly doubt it. Now I want to talk about Anthony Richardson's preseason performance. His performance, not that impressive. He was about 1 of 6 against the Baltimore Ravens, and he couldn't diagnose the Ravens blitz, and David Ojabo got a free rush, and he got his finger injured, and Kurt Warner basically had a tweet about how Anthony Richardson has to read that, and he has to either throw it to the running back or the tight end. And when Kurt Warner speaks about quarterbacks or he speaks about coverages, I listen because he's a hell of an NFL analyst, and he was also a hell of a NFL quarterback. And it's a bit concerning that Anthony Richardson wasn't able to read that blitz. He's been unimpressive and injury prone throughout his career, and the fact that he's going into his third years and he's making rudimentary mistakes like that is alarming. I mean, if it was his rookie year, I would have been like, he's a rookie. He's trying to learn the playbook. Heck, if it was a new coach, I would have been more amenable to that, even though that's still something he should be able to read. But I mean, this is his third year, has had the same coach. I mean, I'd imagine more or less the same playbook. And, you know, if he continues to make more mistakes like that, it's going to be all eyes on him because, like I said, unimpressive so far. I mean, 2023 season, only played 4 games, 577 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, 59.5 completion percentage. And then second year, 2024 season, he played 11 games, threw for 1,814 yards, 8 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, and a 47.7 completion percentage. And there was also that thing last year where against the Houston Texans, he just basically tapped out for a play because he was tired and he had a bunch of scrambles and he just didn't have the energy and he couldn't muster up to play another play. And as a quarterback, you can't do that. And that didn't go very well, and Shane Steichen benched him in favor of Joe Flacco, and there were concerns about his maturity. And to be fair, he has made strides this season because Shane Steichen and Quentin Nelson has said that he's been a better leader, but I just don't think that's going to be enough. I mean, I'm sure that he's matured, but I just don't think he's going to be a good enough NFL quarterback, and I just don't think he can be a franchise guy. I mean, I don't think you can teach accuracy. I mean, they were able to do it with Josh Allen in Buffalo. Um, I guess to a degree with Jalen Hurts, even though he's not like a great pocket passer, he's a hell of an athlete. But Lamar, Lamar has also improved his passing a lot. But I mean, other than maybe a few cases, I just don't think accuracy is something that you can teach. And I guess the Indianapolis Colts wanted to take a guy like Anthony Richardson, who does have like great physical characteristics, 6'4", athletic, has a cannon of an arm, and they just thought, we'll make him into our Josh Allen. But I guess they're probably going to realize sooner or later that he can't be Josh Allen, and Josh Allen and even to a degree Lamar are just like, two out of the world players who were able to develop something that isn't really easy to develop historically. And it's a bit concerning that they had to bring in Daniel Jones, and it's a solid quarterback competition. I mean, Daniel Jones can absolutely win the starting job. And usually when NFL teams bring a backup quarterback, they aren't expecting the backup quarterback to take the starting job if like they have a solid entrenched starter. I mean, Jaden Daniels, I don't think the Commanders are looking to have a quarterback competition. Even someone like a Caleb Williams, even though he's had a little bit of maturity issues, I think the Chicago Bears believe in his potential, and they're not having a serious quarterback competition with him being the number 1 overall pick. But Daniel Jones has a shot, and I don't know. If it doesn't succeed this year with Richardson or Daniel Jones, which I doubt it will succeed because Daniel Jones was not good in New York outside of that 2022 season with that first season with Daboll where they were able to win a playoff game with the Vikings. It's going to be Shane Steichen and Chris Ballard's ass on the line. And it's usually the kiss of death for a coach and a general manager when they draft a quarterback high and he's just not able to perform and you're not winning a lot of games. I mean, me personally, I think that Shane Steichen is a very good coach. I think he's made the best out of this roster, but the record is the record, about 500. It's a weak division, and at a certain point, people and I guess the new owners are going to be like, where's the playoff appearances? Where's the playoff wins? I mean, he's going to need to do that eventually sooner rather than later. And I mean, if you don't have a quarterback, it's going to be like, well, we gave you 4 or 5 years, and there have been other coaches who have been able to turn franchises around, and you haven't been able to do it, and we're just going to look to our next guy. I mean, people thought Chris Ballard should have been fired last year, but Jim Irsay decided to keep him around, and unfortunately, he passed away, and I don't know, with it being a family-owned business, I don't know if they're going to fire Chris Ballard. I mean, usually with family-owned businesses, they're usually reticent to just fire people, especially if they have a relationship with them. I mean, Pittsburgh, they're family-owned businesses, and they've only had like 3 coaches in the past 50 years. I mean, the Lakers, they refuse to fire Rob Pelinka. I mean, they'll fire coaches, but Rob Pelinka, he has to stay. And I don't know, it might be the same with the Colts. And you've just seen it with other coaches, whether it's Matt Nagy. I mean, they drafted Mitchell Trubisky. I don't know whether that was his decision or not to draft Mitchell Trubisky with the second overall pick, but they passed up on Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson before Deshaun Watson turned out to be a rapist. He was a pretty good quarterback in Houston and was definitely a top 5, top 7 guy. And Matt Nagy was able to make the playoffs with Mitchell Trubisky, and I'm not saying that he was this perfect coach or whatever, but he made the playoffs, which is something that doesn't usually happen in Chicago. We'll see if it happens with Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson, but in their history, they don't really make the playoffs or really go very far in the modern century. But he was able to do that, but eventually they just let him go. I mean, if he had Patrick Mahomes or Deshaun Watson, excuse me, I'd imagine he'd be able to keep his job a little bit longer, or who knows, maybe he doesn't get fired. But yeah, that's definitely one. I mean, Frank Reich with Carson Wentz, he didn't draft Carson Wentz, but he did want to trade for him, and they had a pretty good relationship. Going back to his days as an offensive coordinator with Philadelphia, that didn't work out at all. That was a disaster, and eventually Frank Reich gets fired. And I don't know, if he had a quarterback, I don't think Frank Reich gets fired because I think he's a pretty good coach. I mean, and then he goes to Carolina, drafts Bryce Young with the number 1 overall pick. And I'm not saying that Bryce Young is going to be horrible, but I just don't think he's going to be an elite guy or like a tier below elite. I just think he'll be okay, and if you surround him with like good enough pieces, you can make the playoffs. But other than that, I just don't think you're going to go very far with him as your quarterback. And I don't know, maybe if they drafted CJ Stroud, Frank Reich gets to keep his job. And even someone like a Kyle Shanahan, I think him and John Lynch might have lost their jobs because they traded up a lot to get Trey Lance, and he obviously turned out to be a bust as of now. Who knows, maybe he'll revive his career, but I don't think so. And luckily, they got Brock Purdy with the last pick in the NFL draft, and he turned out to be a pretty good quarterback no matter what you think of him. And because of that, they were able to save their jobs. And Robert Saleh, he's another one. Drafted Zach Wilson with the second overall pick, and to be fair to Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas, I mean, there weren't really any other quarterbacks to draft because none of the quarterbacks in that class turned out to be good. That was the Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Mac Jones class, and none of those guys turned out to be good. And ironically, Justin Fields is now a New York Jet, but I don't see the hype around him. But that's a story for another day. And they did try to bring in Aaron Rodgers, but he tears his ACL, second year is not good, and then Robert Saleh gets fired. And I think Robert Saleh was actually a pretty good coach, not to say that he was perfect or anything, but who knows, maybe if he had a franchise quarterback, he would have been able to keep his job longer. So I just don't think this is going to end well for Steichen and Ballard unless Steichen is somehow magically able to win some games. I mean, it is a pretty weak division outside of Houston, who isn't like exactly a juggernaut. I mean, Jacksonville, I don't know how good they're going to be, if Trevor Lawrence is ever going to be able to take that next step. I mean, Travis Hunter, I like him, but I don't know if that's going to be enough. Tennessee is probably going to stink. But yeah, unless they make the playoffs and Anthony Richardson stinks, I just don't think they'll be able to save their job. And I think at the very least, Shane Steichen is probably going to get fired. So hopefully Anthony Richardson can turn it around for their sakes. And now I want to talk about Matthew Stafford. He's been pretty much out for this training camp, and this summer because of a back injury. I mean, Sean McVay did say that he threw 60 passes on Saturday and he looked pretty good, but they're still being cautious about his back, and his back didn't respond the way that they wanted it to respond. And I'm pretty concerned. He's 37 years old. He's taken a lot of hits going back to his days in Detroit. He had a spinal contusion in 2022. And I'm not really concerned about him and the playbook. I mean, I'm pretty sure that he'll know the offense pretty well. But I'm concerned that whether or not he'll have timing with his receivers. Devontae Adams is a new addition, and he has to build chemistry with the guy like Devontae Adams, because if he doesn't, they're just going to look all out of sorts. And him not practicing, that's huge. And it kind of stinks because I really like the Rams' potential this year. I like their defensive line with Jared Verse, Kobe Turner, and Puna Ford. And I thought with Stafford healthy, they can go far, man, because I mean, they gave Philadelphia all the trouble they could. And that was the only team that gave Philadelphia really any trouble, because Philadelphia pretty much blew out all the other teams they played in the playoffs. Um, they did a pretty good job against Detroit a couple years ago. Was a pretty close game. And it pains me to say it, they have a pretty good shot of winning the division. I mean, I think San Francisco will definitely be better than they were last year. I love Seattle. I'm obviously a Seahawks fan, but I think at best they can win 10 to 12 games, possibly 12 being the high end. I just don't think Seattle is going to win the division, but who knows? Maybe Sam Darnold and Mike McDaniel will prove me wrong, but I just don't think that's going to happen. And I think with Stafford just not being able to practice, that's going to bite them. I mean, even if he's ready for week one, I don't know, he might look rough. And if he's just working his way back into form, and like there's a few weeks goes by and he still doesn't look right, they're 1-2, it won't be good. I mean, every game in the NFL matters, and I think the NFC West is a pretty good division. And if they're just not able to start off on the right track, I just don't think that'll help them. And I think that's probably going to happen with Matthew Stafford being an older quarterback and him needing like the extra practice and the extra reps. And I don't know. I just think the Rams are probably going to struggle with this back injury. Now I want to talk about the athletic QB tiers. They made it into 5 tiers, and tier 1 is a quarterback that can carry his team each week. The team wins because of him. He expertly handles pure passing situations. He has no real holes in his game. A tier 2 quarterback can carry his team sometimes, but not as consistently. He can handle pure passing situations in doses and or possesses other dimensions that are special enough to elevate him above tier 3. He has a hole or two in his game. A tier 3 quarterback is a legitimate starter but needs a heavier running game and or defensive component to win. A lower volume quarterback drop back passing offense suits him best. A tier 4 quarterback could be an unproven player or a veteran who ideally would not start all 17 games. And a tier 5 quarterback is best suited as a backup. And the Athletic, they talk to general managers, they talk to coaches, they talk to assistant coaches, and just based on their responses and how they rank the quarterbacks, they compiled all those statistics and ranked them in a certain way from 1 through 5 in tiers. And in tier 1, they had Mahomes, Burrow, Lamar, Allen, and Matthew Stafford. Tier 2, they had Daniels, Herbert, Stroud, Hurts, Mayfield, Prescott, Love, and Purdy. Tier 3, they had Murray, Rodgers, Tua, Trevor Lawrence, Smith, Nix, Darnold, May, Williams, Young, and Cousins. Tier 4, they had Wilson, Fields, Penix, McCarthy, Jones, Flacco, Richardson, Rattler. And in Tier 5, they had Kenny Pickett. And I agree with this list for the most part. I would put Matthew Stafford in Tier 2. I mean, I just think Matthew Stafford is a guy that throws a lot of interceptions. And I mean, I know he's cut down in the interceptions in the past couple of years, but I just think he's going to give you at least 1 or 2 a game possibly. And I think because of that, I'd put him in tier 2. I mean, he does have a lot of arm talent and he can like throw at different arm angles, but because of that, I just think he's best suited as a tier 2 quarterback. And it's a shame he didn't end up with a guy like McVay earlier in his career, because if he did, I think he would have made multiple Pro Bowls, would have been a Hall of Fame candidate, but unfortunately that's not how it ended up for him. So that sucks. I think Jaden Daniels will be a tier one guy eventually. I can understand the voters putting him as tier two because they need to see it for another year and they don't want to see a sophomore slump like it happens with some quarterbacks. I've said before that I don't think it's going to happen with Jaden Daniels, but I can see why the voters are cautious before coordinating him too early. And I'm with Herbert being tier two. I mean, lots of people want to put him in tier one, but he just doesn't have the playoff wins, doesn't have the iconic moments yet. I mean, he's a bit robotic, and there are times where he can look flustered, just like he did in the playoffs against Jacksonville a couple years ago or against Houston this time around. And he's tough. I'll give him that, but I need him. I need to see him do better in big time situations. And there were a couple other things that I found interesting. I found Baker and Purdy interesting that they put them in tier two. I mean, I'll give Baker as a tier two guy because he's a borderline top 10 quarterback and he's done very well in Tampa the past couple of years. He won a playoff game in Tampa, gave the Commanders all he could, lost only by 3 points. Purdy, I'm going to put him as a tier three guy. He did do pretty well on high volume the year of dropbacks, the year they made it to the Super Bowl, but I still honestly think he needs a good heavy run game and offensive line to get the best out of him. And I mean, you need the same with Baker, but I just think that Baker has more physical characteristics than a Brock Purdy. Is a little bit sturdier, is a little bit taller, has a bit of a stronger arm, and because of that, I'll put him in the tier two category. But I think Purdy's a tier three guy. I mean, he's only like 6 foot 6'1", and if you're not a crazy athlete, that leaves you at a very big disadvantage. And I think Baker is stronger and has more physical intangibles. And Goff, he isn't athletic, but he's tall. And even though he's a pocket statue, because of him like being tall and being able to see over his offensive line and being able to make certain throws, and Jared Goff can sling it. That's why I'm gonna put him in tier two, even though he's not the most athletic dude. And even someone like a Jalen Hurts, who's not the best pocket passer in the world, and isn't like a great thrower of the football. He's very, very athletic and he's very strong. And because of that, I think he is a tier two quarterback. And Purdy's definitely a smart quarterback and accurate, but I just think with him needing more support and the lack of height, I'd keep him in that tier three category. But I do think if you put the surrounding pieces around him, he can definitely win a Super Bowl. I mean, he took the Chiefs to overtime and they could have absolutely won that Super Bowl. I think Mayfield is a guy that you can absolutely win a Super Bowl with if you put the surrounding pieces around him. And other than that, I agree with all the tier two quarterbacks. I pretty much agree with all the tier three quarterbacks, except for Zach Wilson. I think Zach. Oh, sorry. I agree with all the tier four quarterbacks. I think Zach Wilson is definitely a backup. He wasn't good with the Jets when Rodgers went out, and this preseason with the Dolphins, he didn't exactly knock it out the park. I mean, even though he's a big, strong guy and he has like a lot of physical intangibles, I just don't think he has the mental makeup to be a quarterback. I mean, his processing isn't all that great. He isn't a very accurate guy, and I just don't think that's something that's going to change. And going into his fifth year in the league now, and he still struggled, and I just don't think he's going to miraculously turn it all around. So I think he's a tier five guy. I understand putting Caleb Williams, Drake May, and Michael Penix as tier four. You still need more information on those guys, and they definitely showed a lot of potential. And I think a lot of those guys can definitely ascend to tier three, even tier two. But Zach Wilson, I just think it's pretty much known that he's a backup quarterback. So I'm fine and comfortable to put him there with Michael Penix. And another guy actually that I think is probably a tier five guy is Anthony Richardson. I just don't think he's a starting quarterback in the NFL. I just don't think he's going to be ever accurate enough to be a starting quarterback in the NFL, even though he does have like crazy running abilities and he's also been injury prone his last 2 seasons. I'd also put him in the tier five category, but who knows? Maybe he'll prove me wrong this season, but I think he's also a backup quarterback. But other than that, I agree with this list, and I think the general managers, coaches, assistant coaches, they did a pretty good job on analyzing who's a tier 1 quarterback, who's a tier 2 guy, tier 3, tier 4, or 5, and so on. So, yeah, that's all I have for you today. I will be back this Thursday to talk more about NFL news and any other NBA news if that happens to pop up, but mostly it's going to be NFL. Thank you so much.